Hi, and welcome to JD and Liz Talk. I'm Liz.
And I'm JD Glass. On today's show, we'd like to welcome a founder from the comic book queers, geek fan, and artist himself, Stevie Disme, to the show. Hey, Stevie, how you doing?
Hello, ladies. How are you?
Other than complaining about the weather, fine.
This is what I said earlier today on Twitter. Midwest, you are the manic depressive of the U.S. Super humid one day and then super cold the next. What up?
A lack of meds, perhaps. Like, Mother Nature is off her meds again.
You know, she should just do what I do and self-medicate.
You know, and what's your favorite form of self-medication?
Oh, my God, so many. Who has time for anything but whiskey?
Why should we bother with anything else but whiskey?
Girl.
All right, so let's start with the most important thing. How did you discover comics? I know that you discovered them at the tender age of 4. So what did you do? Find a treasure trove underneath someone's bed? You know, something caught your eye in a store with walking with mom. You must get that from me now. Only, of course, you used 4-year-old language, which was now. Wow, now.
No, my 4-year-old language is more like, Mother, if you are so inclined. No. Just like any other typical kid in the Midwest, some strange man was driving around in a nondescript van and said, "Hey, kid, read this." No, that's a joke, people. No, really what happened was my family moved to a brand new neighborhood, and I was out exploring the backyard because being the youngest of 6 kids, I was ignored a lot. So I would explore on my own, and I would go and have my own adventures. And I was out in the backyard exploring, and there was a kid who lived next door who invited me to come and hang out with him. And he showed me comic books. And the first one he showed me was a Superman family issue. And I just fell in love immediately.
So Superman's your first comic book love?
Oh, yeah. My first comic crush would be Superman. Or it could have also been a Joe Staton drawn Superboy.
Ooh.
I'm not exactly sure of the issue, but at the time, but I do remember that distinctly. To become a teenager in the 80s and really sort of understood that my queerness set me apart from other people, and that it was something that at the time, they told us essentially we should be ashamed of it. I gravitated towards the X-Men because they are the allegory for being queer.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, one of the big things I remember reading some interviews with Chris Claremont on, and of course, we're talking the Chris Claremont years, so it's like the best of the X-Men ever. There were references to the whole relationship between Storm and Jean Grey, and that bond closer than sisters and all of that sort of thing, and it actually became part of subtext. And there were a lot of hints also about Wolverines being bisexual.
Yeah, the best thing about the X-Men that I find, especially, even now, even though I've turned my back on them because it's just way too big and way too out there for me, but even now, the kids are still, it doesn't matter what it is you're struggling with, you can really find what you can identify with the X-Men. Like, people are reading into it with anything that comforts them and that helps them along in their life. And I think that's awesome. That's a great thing about comics in general.
I think I found that, and I'm going to ask if your experience was similar, that I found that, like my peers, if you would, in comics, or into comics, I should say, we were all sort of similar in a couple of respects, in that we were very, very intelligent, very imaginative, and as a result of those two things, somewhat isolated from our school peer groups, because we were different. And it didn't matter, at least that's what I found, in that comic book world, it didn't matter, gay, straight, black, white, anything in between, because we all got into these comics and we could accept each other for being quirky, and in fact it was expected.
Oh, yeah, definitely. The majority of my friends now, I thought I had the aspirations to be an artist when I was a kid. That's what really drew me to the comics. was the art. And the minute I discovered comics, I would start drawing on anything that I could find, any piece of paper that was around the house. And it got to the point where my mom, she wound up, she noticed that, and then she would just start buying me art books. And so I would fill these things up within 2 days, front and back. Basically drawing stories and drawing these characters and making up my own stories with them. And in fact, I sometimes feel like I shouldn't admit this, but I never actually read a comic book until I was about 8 or 9 years old. Up until that point, I literally just looked at the pictures and made my own story.
I totally get that. I have a passel of nieces and nephews, and that's actually really normal because it's part of that learning to read process as well as to read comic books. And the youngest of them still, they look at the pictures. It's all about the pictures. They're not really reading. The older ones, they both look and read, but all of them sit there and try to draw them.
Yeah. Oh, and let me tell you, girl, when I was a kid, what was happening in the X-Men at that time, because I remembered, I still, I didn't gravitate towards that really till the 80s, but in the 70s we had John Byrne and Dark Phoenix.
That's right.
And I remember being so enamored of Dark Phoenix because here was the first time ever this, like, the most powerful character was a woman. And not only was she a woman, but she was stunning. And those thigh-high boots and that sash, oh my God.
And that gorgeous hair.
Oh yes. The hair that defied gravity. God bless.
and the universe, apparently. Well, I actually didn't discover or really come into the X-Men until just as soon as it had really ended. So we're talking, very early to mid-'80s. So I had to sort of backtrack to find out what that was all about. And I was fascinated. It's like, how did this happen? Where did these stories come from? This is dang cool.
Oh, yeah. And the fact that Claremont and Byrne were able to work so well together at the time, I mean, obviously their relationship fell apart later. But at the time, what they were working on was pure gold. And that's still my go-to. Like, when I want to go back and reread an X-Men, I generally pick that era.
You're very active in queer geek community. How did that evolve for you?
Well, I wouldn't really call myself active, but let's say I'm known. And I think that's just mainly because of doing comic book queers for the past 8 years and having my voice out there and just unashamedly giving my opinion because, as far as I'm concerned, it counts. And thankfully, getting to know people who have listened to the show, who have come back to me and who run these organizations like Geeks Out, and also, the Gay Geeks of New York. We have a Geeks Out branch here in Chicago, and I really am excited for that because I feel like it really needs to start building up, and we can get these queer geeks all around Chicago together. I personally don't really want to take the lead on that, but I love being a part of it, and I love promoting it as much as I can.
So,
go ahead. I'm sorry, Liz.
Sorry. So whether you're reading or working, do you have a soundtrack, like the type of music that you like to listen to, or there's a certain zone that you need to be? Does it like vary from project to project?
Yeah, if I'm going to be sitting down to actually do, like, what I've been trying recently to do more of is writing, and if I'm going to sit down to do some writing, in all honesty, I just need silence. But with the rest of my life, when I'm preparing things and getting stuff ready for a show, I just turn on my top 25 on iTunes and let that play. And yes, it is filled with quite a bit of Broadway musicals. I'm not going to apologize for that. I'm sorry, but I'm just that kind of guy.
Is there a particular musical that works for you the best? Like, what's your, like, when you're in a jazzed mood and you just want to celebrate, what kind of song do you like to listen to?
I will go to the Little Shop of Horrors soundtrack almost immediately.
Be a dentist.
Suddenly see more.
Honestly, ladies, if I could do karaoke, if I wasn't so afraid to have people staring at me, If I could do karaoke, Suddenly Seymour is the one I would want to do.
And I'd want to do the dentist song.
Yes. Oh my God. That one. I also love Into the Woods and Rocky Horror Picture Show. I spent the majority of my high school years going to Rocky, and that is just one of the greatest shows and musicals ever.
I completely agree. I've seen it well over 1,000 times. You know, yes, that's all I have to say. And that's like the origin of interactive media.
Oh, I have a funny mini story. I was working at the Salzburg seminar in what was the Von Trapp House, which is where the seminar was held. And when my friends knew that I was going there, they demanded that I go up on the hill and swirl around while singing "The Hills Are Alive with the Sound of Music." And I did do it. I won't lie. I totally did it.
Look, I've never even seen The Sound of Music, but I would do it if I was there.
Totally awesome.
All right, so there we go. We have to arrange a dinner date where you get to watch The Sound of Music.
If I have to suffer through it, I will.
It's classic.
Or you could have like a Julie Andrews-a-thon.
Oh, yeah. I would do Victor Victoria any day.
Oh, my God, yes. I love that headdress that she's wearing. So all like crystals and bejewelment, and then she takes off and shows like her short hair. I was just like, fabulous.
I actually got to see that on Broadway when they revived it right before she lost her voice.
Oh, my God, lucky.
It was phenomenal. I admit, yes, I definitely felt very lucky. And half of the show I actually didn't really pay attention to, in the sense that I don't really know what they were saying, and I didn't really know what the story was about, because just like, Julie Andrews.
Fangirl. How about a non sequitur for you? I don't know what it means to be the Wonder Boy of comic book geeks. What does that mean? I've never heard of comic book geeks and all this kind of stuff. I'm very new to this stuff. So school me, Stevie.
Well, Liz, you need to go out and read a comic, honey, because they're just the best thing ever.
My favorite comic graphic novel that I ever looked at was The Crow.
Okay, yeah, I'm down with that.
There's a lot of really incredibly great stuff. I mean, The Crow sort of kicked off this whole different movement in comics, when it came out, and we're still feeling the effects of that, I think, in really wonderful ways. People are taking risks, or hopefully some are taking risks. I have to admit, side note, I don't know about you, Stevie, but some of the stuff I'm seeing coming out, I'm just like, oh my Lord, why did you shit your brains out?
Oh my God, you just described the entire DC universe to me right now. And it's sad because that was my universe. Those were my characters. The DC, in Marvel universe, you've got heroes who their whole concept is touching base with reality. They have to get jobs. They have to worry about the rent. With DC, the characters were all literally more like celebrities. And growing up as a kid who loved watching the Oscars and all the award shows and seeing the beautiful gowns and just being a little faggot, I loved that concept of DC, of the superheroes being the celebrities. And recently with their reboot, they've decided, like, this is what we really need. We need to be dark, we need to be gritty, and we need to make sure that nobody's happy. All right, well, that's a way, I guess. I've
used some of the art. I just look at it and I'm like, what were you thinking?
Yeah.
Whatever you were thinking, stop thinking it and go eat some real food, because apparently your blood sugars run down.
Yeah. Go take a design class, please.
Oh my God, yes. Learn anything about color theory.
Can I just say really quickly, too, one of the things about artists that really ticks me off, especially within the monthly comic universe, is most of the guys that draw these comic books, and I'm saying guys because it is the men that do this,
right.
They have no concept of fashion for women. Like, the guys, they draw them in t-shirt and jeans, fine, whatever, that's what we wear, that's what I wear all the time. But I am so sick of seeing women in nothing but stupid tight little t-shirts and tight little jeans, because There's a whole array of clothing. That's the one thing I've always been jealous about with women. There's so much clothing in so many different styles.
Do you know that's the one thing I feel really bad about for men? There are actually two things. One is that, the whole being warm and open and affectionate, you guys get such a hard time about. And the other is dressing. Unless you can somehow prove that you're Scottish, and that's just not fair. I agree.
But I've already decided I'm going to buy a couple skirts for this summer because it's too much.
Get some sarongs.
Oh, there's an idea.
Oh, they're very clear. You can wear they're gender free if you would.
I like that idea.
And they're nice. They make some really great fabrics, or you can make your own.
Oh no! Now you're going too far, lady.
You don't have that gay gene?
I don't do those things. I'm gay, but I'm not that gay.
I'm curious. One of the things that is a challenge for, I know just from watching films or reading books that are series, is that it seems at times that they run out of ideas, and the concept often comes of jumping the shark. And I think it's such a huge challenge to keep on going with the same characters. How do you see it when you're following a series and then it starts to go flat?
Yeah, I'm so used to the idea of a pull list now, where it's always something exciting happens. I'm going to put that on my pull list. If it starts to bore me, I just drop it, and that's not my attitude with comics. If something doesn't grab me, if it doesn't keep my interest after 4 or 5 issues, I'm done. And it saddens me too, because I love these stories. I love serialized fiction. But what I want is, I would love for there to be some way for them to give it a sense of continuity, to allow the characters to age and change. And, that's one of the things, although I read a few issues of The Savage Dragon from Image Comics, and although it didn't really catch my interest, one of the things I admired about it was that the creator, he let his characters age in real time. Excuse me. Up to the point where now the title is, the main character has died and his son has now taken over as the Savage Dragon. And real time has gone through. When I was a kid, I used to love DC's Earth 2. Earth 2 was the world where all the heroes got their start in World War II, and by the time the 70s come around, they're all older, and the second generation is starting to come up with Power Girl, my favorite. And you get to see that generational shift and differences between the two. And even just as a 9 or 10-year-old, I recognized how that was different, and I recognized how that was a good thing.
Well, that makes sense, because you're developing, especially if, in terms of keeping audience, the audience is growing, so should, the material. Probably right now, the successful comic book that's doing that is ElfQuest.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you ever followed that at all.
Oh, I've read the original series.
Okay, so you remember Cutter?
Oh, yeah.
Well, he's an elder now.
Oh, nice.
And yeah, exactly. And his daughter is the chief.
That is really interesting.
Yeah, so they've allowed for continuity, for growth, for all sorts of change, and yet it's still ElfQuest.
Well, Richard and Wendy Penny, they knew what they were doing.
I give them a lot of credit. Yeah, absolutely. They were one of those independents that really crossed over, and yet still somehow managed, no matter what, to still feel independent.
Yeah. That's not something that most of the companies can do, most series can do. Now, granted, on the flip side of that, I would say that DC and Marvel, their hands are kind of tied with the way that they've created their worlds and the way that they allow the creators to run with them. I think that if they just open up their horizons and just let these characters go in whatever direction they go in, you can always reshuffle it later and fix things up, but just be more open with the development.
All I have to say to that, unfortunately, is Crisis on Infinite Earth.
Unfortunately, girl, that was one of my favorites.
No, the unfortunate part about it is that they can do that.
Yeah, well, yeah.
By the way, I happened to have that maxi series. I thought it was fantastic, and it was a really wonderful opportunity. I do think that they bobbled it and bobbled it again.
Yes.
And that's the nice thing I think about the comic book world is that as audience, we're actually very forgiving. And if they're going to restart or whatever, we'll go with it. Just give us a good restart. I mean, the whole New 52 is just like, hey, look, my favorite description. You probably read this article. A gentleman was in a comic book store with his child, a little girl, and her takeaway from all the new covers was all the men are robots and all the women are strippers.
That sounds about right.
All the men are robots, all the women are strippers. And she was like 4. So,
Yeah, it actually kind of saddens me when I see people dress their kids up as, like, in cosplay. I love kids in cosplay, don't get me wrong. But it saddens me when I see people dress the kids up in cosplay as these newer versions of the characters, because I doubt very highly that these kids know what's going on in those books.
Oh my God, I hope not.
Yeah, well, exactly. But, yeah, they I don't know, the whole concept behind serialized fiction with turning them into franchises, and you're completely right. Like, DC, you had a crisis, you don't need 5 more.
Yeah, somebody might want to tell them that.
And I would much prefer it if they took, I made an observation once at C2E2 with some friends on another podcast that it seems like Marvel's approach to business is they have creators come in and pitch ideas to them, and they pick the ones that sound good. Where DC's approach seems to be, here's where we want everything to be, who can do this for us?
That seems to be the way it goes. I mean, once they sort of gutted Vertigo.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that poor child. That poor bastard stepchild of DC now.
It was a beautiful thing once upon a time.
It was. Well, they ousted Jeanette Kahn, so she's, oh well.
Yeah, exactly.
But, I think I just saw a headline the other day, though, that she is coming back with a new imprint, her and another creator, and it's going to be female-led, and it's going to be female-driven, which I think is going to be amazing.
That's going to be fantastic. Well, she was amazing. She was amazing. She did amazing things for DC, so if she's going to be doing that, send me a link, because I'd love to
Oh, definitely.
Tremendous interest.
So, what would you like to see happen, both in terms of where comic book geeks go and comics in general? And what's next for you?
I would love to see comics just focus more on quality than quantity. And I also want to encourage everybody to get out there and look at the independent publishers. Because even though, like, Image Publishing, they are really becoming one of the big boys now, they still have a lot of great titles out there and a lot of good books. Dark Horse, Boom Studios, IDW. IDW and Boom Studios both do really good, in my opinion, really good interpretations of licensed properties. Like, IDW did this fantastic Planet of the Apes series that blew me away. And Boom, they're doing, I believe it's Boom that's doing the new Flash Gordon series, which is awesome, drawn by Evan Shanner, who is just a great artist. And what I want to see for geeks in the community is I want us to be more vocal, and I want us to not only be more vocal about, I want us to be vocal about the things that we like, not so much the things that we hate. I want all of us to report to the companies, like, you're doing this right, keep doing that. And talk about the representation that we want to see. Like, we need more queer characters. We need more trans characters. We need more positive identities out there for the queer youth that are reading these books, because they're using them the way I used them as a kid, and they're escaping the drudgery of their lives through the 4-color page. And they need to see positive reinforcement out there to let them know that they're okay, and that, to use a stupid cliche, it does get better.
Mm-hmm.
You know what they say about cliches? They're only cliches because they're true.
Most of the time.
Exactly. I think that's an awesome vision to have, and I certainly think that you're definitely leading on that front to make that a reality.
Well, all I can do is what I keep doing, and that's really what's next for me. Is I'm just going to keep talking, and I'm going to keep turning on microphones and talking wherever I can and letting people hear my opinion. Because, again, I think it's pretty cool.
So who's doing it right, and what have they been doing right?
Let's see. I think, although I'm not really a reader of it, the current Batgirl run has a trans character, Alicia, and I had the pleasure of moderating a panel at C2E2 with Gail Simone on the panel talking about that. And I was very happy that she was able to bring this character to the forefront. And I also liked her approach to the process of bringing this character in. She basically said that when she writes a book, she thinks of these characters, and then she just sticks it in there. It's not like she's trying to sneak it past somebody. She just puts it in there. And the editors, if they catch on, then they catch on. If they don't, they don't, which actually might turn out to be a plus later on for her. And then I also, I think that Young Avengers did a really good job with representing, well, just about every aspect of sexuality in the characters. And it was kind of amazing to realize when you got to the last issue, when you got to the end point, that essentially there was only one straight character on the team.
I didn't realize that either.
Yeah, and it didn't even occur to me as I was reading it because I just enjoyed these characters. And then it was at the very end when my favorite character, Ms. America Chavez, when she turns and says to the one straight girl, she's like, think about it, you know, everyone else has either had experiences or they're bisexual and they had the great representation of diversity of color as well. They had a Latina, they had a black guy, they had, well, way too many white guys, but you know.
So let's change on to a different topic. We saved the important question for last. What's your food preference? What's something that you must have, like one of your biggest cravings? What's your favorite?
Oh, jeez. That's a good question, and I wasn't expecting it.
I heard a story about you.
Uh-oh, what'd you hear?
I think it involved corn dogs. Or mac and cheese.
Always mac and cheese.
Ha.
That's always a good thing. But one of the great things about Chicago is that we have a street fair every weekend. And one of the great things about street fairs is what I call street meat.
Ah, you are brave. You are so brave.
Anything that is grilled and put on a stick on the street in a cart, I'm happy to try it. Actually, the best street meat I ever had was in New York last October, and it was the first street meat I ever had in New York. And it was just this great kebab. I can't tell you the name of the truck, but this little cart, great kebab. Juices were dripping down my hand as I was eating it, but I couldn't stop to wipe because it was so good.
Woohoo!
It sounds like Italian peppers. Italian sausage, I mean.
Oh yeah, or
when I said I couldn't stop to wipe. Don't.
It's like a good cheesesteak or something.
It was great.
So, one of the foods that you dig the most, do you make them yourself? Because we have been, as part of every episode, we've been sharing a favorite recipe of our guests. If you're not cooking inclined, the favorite thing you like to be cooked for you.
Ooh, well, I don't cook it, but again, as I am a carnivore, I really do love a good country fried steak.
Ooh.
And I just got back from visiting my friend Patty Boom in North Carolina, and he took me to a place there called Dish, and that's what I had, and it was absolutely delicious. I highly recommend anybody going there and getting that.
Mm-hmm.
I actually like country fried steak myself.
How could you not?
So if you wanted to give, because we're coming to the end of our time together, if you could give a takeaway to our audience, you can even speak to different members of our audience, whether it's people who are growing up reading the comics or people who are writing, producing, and reading them, or publishers, etc. What's something that you'd like to put out there?
What would I like to tell people that are listening? I'd like to tell everybody actually, if you're listening to this, then that means that you are a smart person, and that also means that you have a lot of ideas and you need to follow that, and you need to express those ideas and get them out there to the world, because the world needs it. That's just, it's like, I feel like I have to apologize for where I'm at in my life sometimes, but the truth is, when I look at my life as a whole, I'm really pushing forward, and that's what I think needs to happen, and expressing myself is the best way to do that.
So if you were going to say something to the youngins out there, especially those who, since this is Pride Month, getting close to Pride weekend, what's something that you'd like to have as a takeaway for the queer youth?
Oh, here's a really good takeaway. Don't emulate those drunken bastards out there. I mean, come on, don't be stupid about your Pride celebrations, and remember the reason why we have Pride parades and Pride festivities, because, you know, there was a time not that long ago that I remember where Pride was something that we weren't allowed to have. We were told not to be who we are, and yeah, just remember to be who you are, but also be respectful of that.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I think as I guess you always get the combination of the good with the bad. There's been a lot of strides in civil rights for us, a lot more visibility, a lot more people comfortable coming out, a lot more different ways to express yourself and even label yourself should you so choose. Like the 50 options regarding your gender on Facebook. That's kind of funny and cool.
Yeah.
Do you remember when once upon a time that there were very few choices? You like gay, straight, or not, or bi?
Yeah, and the thing is, at that time when I was growing up, there weren't choices, and a lot of people wanted to push me. I call it the trinary instead of the binary. You either have to be butch, femme, or androgynous, and you have to be consistently that. And like I got a lot of heat growing up in my baby dyke days because I liked all of those incarnations, and they want me to choose, but I didn't want to. So I think it's really groovy that there's choice out there, but at the same time, there's a lack of understanding and reverence when it comes to what pride is and all the things that people before us did to make our lives better. And we have also a lot of cyberbullying and other ways to cut to the quick, even more painful things that happen. So we have a long way to go.
I completely agree. There is a long way to go, but I think that another thing I agree with is that the whole idea that we have all these choices now is a great thing. I identify as queer because in my mind, queer encompasses everything, and I feel like I am a part of everything, and we all should be, and it should just be that sort of brotherhood, sisterhood, that queerhood, if you will.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I mean, I tend to say gay because it's a blanket term, or queer because I don't like to be defined. There's plenty of definition going on. And in terms of where we're going, where we've been, and how we're getting there, I bear a few things in mind. And the one is that people a lot braver than myself started Stonewall, but those are the people who inspired me to be part of things like ACT UP and things like that. So the strides that we've made now, and that this is on us. Yeah, this is our generation who have taken that torch and carried it forward. That's why we're at where we are today, because this is us. This is what we've done. This is what we're continuing to do. And the one thing that I hope that people remember moving forward as over the next 20 years, we prepare to say, all right, you guys take over. We're training them now, to do so. What I hope they remember is, to paraphrase Martin Luther King, no man is free until we're all free.
Mm-hmm. And that is a great note to end this very stimulating episode of JD and Let's Talk. And I want to thank Stevie again for coming on. It's been a pleasure to sit back and listen to the two of you banter and discuss a topic I'm unfamiliar with.
Thank you, ladies, for inviting me. And I hope you don't mind that I say ladies, by the way, but I say that to just about everybody, so.
No, I don't mind. I just got to a really weird discussion about people finding the term offensive, and I'm like, but if you're in a group that's labeled women, then why would you find the term ladies offensive? But whatever.
Yeah.
Okay, but I don't find it offensive. in fact, I think it's especially when it's it's among us folks, so to speak.
Yeah, when it's from a faggot like me.
Well, if it's anything said with love and in true pure intent, as opposed to a barb, is acceptable. And I love spending time with the two of you, and maybe we'll have you on again in the future.
Sounds good.